Alright, so let's actually, instead of doing Tai Chi Harmony, we can just simply do one of these to start. And then for breathing, we'll practice some Tai Chi for our warm-up, for our Qigong warm-up. So take a nice square step. You can make it a larger, wider square. And then take your stick, and if you're using, Charlotte, if you have the actual BIAN and the longer one, you can hold it this way. But if you're using the shorter stick, turn a few circles with the breathing. So make your stance lower. Activate your feet. And when we're shifting, try to keep your hips level. So as if my hips are traveling on this plane level this way, which means my knee staying in line with my foot this way. So even though it's traveling forwards and back, and it doesn't go past my toe here, it's shifting to the back and to the front. So relax your tailbone, activate your toes. And then you can switch as you need. I won't remind you to switch your feet when you feel like there's a lot of pressure. Especially if you feel pressure on the knees, stand up just a little bit more. If you're having any sort of pain, pain is one of the body's ways of saying stop. So, and then breathing, make this your Qigong. So warming up, taking in lots of energy. Keep your tailbone sunk. Imagine, some people say, well, doesn't the weight have to come up to transfer to the other leg to go back down? The example used the other day was rain is always going down. Or a waterfall. If you make the feeling of gravity on your tailbone acting like a waterfall, where the energy is traveling down. One teacher said it like this: imagine you have two containers and you're pouring some heavy, whether you want to use the example of bearings, ball bearings, or BBs, from one container into the other. Or you can use a very heavy fluid, mercury, like a liquid metal. And so from your legs, like it's pouring from one side, the weight pouring into the other, and then keeping the hips sunk, pouring the weight back into the other side. Meanwhile, the arms go at your own pace. You can change directions with the arms as well. Pulling back over the top. Remember to change your feet, put one foot in front of the other. And then come back to the center. Let's do a little bit of stretching. So if you take the stick, put it just behind, and before we stretch, Feel it on your shoulder blades, right on top of the shoulder blades, on the upper part of the neck, out here on the sides. You can turn the stick onto the tissue. Use as much force as you feel comfortable with. You don't have to use a lot of pressure. You don't have to use a lot of power. Don't hit your vertebrae, don't hit your spine when you're doing this massage. And then come back to the center and turning. So keep your spine straight, breathing. Normally we say in Tai Chi the chest is hollow. Here you can push up through the chest. Push up through the back of the head top. And use your abs. This is a good way to build strength in the abdominal muscles. Grip your feet. If you're doing the longer one, if you have longer stick and you're turning this way, practice starting and stopping by applying pressure to one side of the abs or the other. So if you have the full size stick and you're turning, it's like pulling on one side and then applying the brakes on the other side. So do the long turn. If you're using the shorter stick, you can simply turn quicker. So it's like pulling the abs one after the other. Keep your neck straight. And then change. We're going to do a different, take your stick, put it over the back, and then walk your hands towards each other. We don't have to open this in one day, so take your time, go slow. You don't have to stretch. Definitely don't hurt yourself. Breathe deep. When you're ready, let go with the lower hand. Turn it back up over the top. And then from here, the same thing. Walking the hands towards each other. And then when you're ready, let go with the upper hand, the lower hand comes out. By the way, that motion, if you have the stick and you have it behind you, the acupressure point directly across from the dantian in the center here is called Mingmen. So if you take your fist, the back of your hand, that's the mirror point of this here, and you put that point on the back here as such. And then we're going to take the stick and turn it so that it comes out and up. So it points down and then back up in the center. And then we're going to transfer back to the other side. Up, transfer. Connect it to the back in the center this way. Bring it up to the center. Transfer to the other hand. Bring it back. Center. Back. Center. Back, center. The part where I really want you to feel is as it's coming up, that it's swinging freely like a pendulum. And so from this turned area here, that the wrist coming up this way. And so from this movement, right, this turn, like this, looking for that both, it's like we're letting go to relax. But then right at the moment where the pendulum starts to swing, we add this little bit of flick of the wrist so that it comes down and pops up. This is one of the sort of powers that we're looking for with this BIAN form, right? Is when we're turning, it's completely relaxed. And then at the last minute, in the middle of that relaxation, we add the power. How many in this class have heard me talk about Tai Chi being like the egg toss? When somebody's tossing the egg and you have to catch it, and you have to cushion it so that it doesn't break in your hand. Well, skilled egg toss person, if you've ever played that, is you can actually use the momentum to send the egg back in the trajectory where you'd like to send it, and you can scrub some of the speed off of it. You can reduce the speed of the egg by doing this, or you can increase it, right, without damaging the egg or your hand. You can catch, and as it comes over, add just this quick whip that sends it out. That's what we're looking for with this, is like the egg toss. We want to completely let it fly and relax, and then at the last second, we pull the wrist tight so that it goes out and it hits, right? This type of whipping motion.
I've just discovered the only problem with that is that if you're not precise and you're generating a lot of power, you actually whack yourself in the leg.
Please be very careful and don't hit yourself with the stick, right? In fact, I have a term that I say when we talk about this, is I say that the stick doesn't lie, right? The stick is a product of the reality that we live in, and so it's subject to gravity, and it's subject to momentum and all of the different physics that we're subject to. And so that means that the stick didn't actually hit you. You did something that allowed the stick to hit you. So the stick isn't deceptive. The stick is accurate. Please be very careful. And it's actually okay to get hit. Sometimes the hit is in a place where you actually needed acupressure. So again, when we're doing this to the back, don't hit your vertebrae, don't hit your spine. That's very delicate equipment. The same way you wouldn't hit your electronics equipment with your stick, your phone or your cell phone. Don't hit your spine, your skull, the tailbone, anything through central communications. But the feeling, and by the way, if you're using the longer one, it may be easier to feel, but indoors, you have to have the space to do the thing, right? So with this one, you have a longer range for the hit, right? This kind of turning. The feeling is this arc that comes out this way. So power coming, and you can think of it as in a straight line. So if I'm facing forward in this direction, if I have my hand here, it's coming up in a line, in a straight line, right to the center. Longer stick, please be careful indoors. The stick doesn't lie when you hit yourself. It also doesn't lie when it breaks things inside your home. So take the measure not to destroy your stuff. Oh, we were still working out. We're still stretching. What's another good one? We're still working on upper body. So take this and hitting over this trapezius muscle here, the no, is this trapezius? I think so. And then try the other side. Use the other hand. Sometimes it's easier to do same side. Sometimes it's easier to do opposite. Just balance it out. If you have the larger stick, you can still do the same thing. And you can also hold a pivot here and then activate the lever down here. You can use the weighted end. So just like when you see the people do in the television and movies, I've never experienced it. I've massage, acupuncture, but in the TV and movies, they always have some guy doing the chopping. You can do the same thing using this on this real hard tissue that's there, just like a meat tenderizer. And again, if it's painful, only do so much, right? You can use it everywhere. On your arms, on your forearms. Everyone here using a computer, so when you're sitting, you can tap your forearms with this thing. Try Try not to hit the bone, right? That's it, like the funny bone back here, right? Instead, try to get the tendon. We can even skip the muscle. Try to get down to the tendon, shoulders, pectoralis, deltoids, all of this stuff. And if we set that down, let's do a little bit of turning. So really try to relax. Imagine like a tent that has a post in the center. And the rest of the material for the tent is literally pulled down with cables. So imagine your arms heavy and that the central post is what is supporting. Next, let's turn around the hips. So the same thing. Push to the extents. Tai Chi is sometimes translated as great extremities boxing. So we want to be able to find the extent without breaching the limit, because going past the limit is a break or a failure or some type of error. And so we're always looking for the 99.9 percentile. What is the best way to do something without receiving an injury or having an error? Something like that. For the legs, we're going to use the stick again. So the same thing. Take one foot is your standing foot. Put the other foot forward. I'll do it so you can see my foot on the camera. And then push your tailbone back and away and use the stick, hitting right along the center line. Keep working, but along this seam on the back of the pant, back of the leg. Straighten your spine, push the head top. Whether the chin is jutting forward or whether we have it tucked, in this particular one, make sure the neck is straight. And practice your wrist coordination. If you have the big stick, the same thing. You can create a pivot point further out and pull this in, or you can also run the stick up and down, pressing along the surface of the skin. It can be actually quite painful, so practice as you like. When you come up, take a deep breath. And then on your own, on the other side, the same thing. Let me see if I can get on camera. And then you're going to find one side is more challenging than the other. Your hand coordination, control in the stick. So use this time to practice that type of coordination with your hand. Try to straighten your spine, whether you push the neck, whether you push the chin forward, or whether you tuck the chin. Yeah, sometimes it's just the joy of swinging the stick. The stick is the most primitive weapon. Maybe picking up a rock and throwing it is more primal. Who knows? We'll have to time travel back to see. In the meantime, let's go back to the basic. You know what we should do? Is if you have... you should be practicing with at least socks on. Take your stick. This is good for balance, so grip your standing foot. Especially if you have a slipper, you can use more power. And then change. Try the other side. Grip the ground. Use the other hand. especially I'm actually going to balance that out with the other side with no shoe on, so you can see. And again, sort of as much power as feels good without being painful. So the form, Charlotte has practiced this. Do you know the B side, the second section? This is a really, really short form. Let's just go through the first section and see what we can remember. So from here, we have a salute. It's ready. I'm going to stand back. I'm going to move in that direction. And then my ready stance, block, cast, recoil, and flip. Turn the stick to smash. Wah-bah. Cut up. Recoil and turn. This is drilling Schwan. High hit. Turn. Low hit. Flip up. Tip over the top. And then when we step, we're going to turn so the stick is going the opposite way that we step. And that's the transition into the second section. We can work on that tonight. I was hoping that Mark would be here because that transition it shows up twice more in the second section. So we'll just deal with the end of the first section because all of this stuff is very simple, if that makes sense. Before we continue, questions, thoughts, comments on anything that you're working on, that you're doing with the BIAN. Because if not, I think we got done with the high hit, and I think we did this one, this turning, right? We can practice a few times. And then after that one, the next one, we looked at it, this tip up here. And then the next one after that is another, almost like from the first, after we block, we have this cast. But in the first part of the first section, after we block, this cast goes to the edge of the gate, right? So if I'm using the square here, this cast staying parallel with that line. Whereas on the last section, after we turn to here, this is tipping up to the center, and this is also going over the top to the center. So let's look at those. Let's go do the first section again up to the baseball hit, right? This sort of high hit this way. So from the ready stance. By the way, remember if you're using one, have the correct. If you have the BIAN gun, use the correct grip. Turning, block, cast, recoil, hit, smash, cut, block, drill, and then after the high hit from here, turning the end of the stick, hit down. And now pulling this just like a lever away from the opponent, tip up, and now pressing with the same hand we just pulled this up, we're going to reach the lower hand up and push this one out, right? So imagine you have there's something there and you want to get past it. So instead of trying to hit here, you're actually hitting over. So as if I'm hitting over my web camera, right? So this is from this hit, if I'm facing this direction here, when I turn, I step back. And then for the next one, this one, again, the stepping can go forwards, backwards. But this pulling up, I would also move back, right? I want to make sure I don't run into anything. So it's hit, turn, back, and then high hit. And so you see here the objective is to get over the top. If I have something, let's say my opponent has a shield, right? Or they have a gate, they have a defense. It's here. It's up in front of them. It's at their head height. I want to be able to get over that and hit them on the head beyond whatever they're protecting themselves with. If they have their arm here, right? I want to get over that arm and be able to hit the target. So remember, by the way, these, just like the Tai Chi form, sometimes these forms can be connected and we can use them individually as well. So we're going to look at drilling and the high hit, like the baseball hit, as a connected thing, because as a chess, if we look at this from a chess move, it's like check and mate in one thing. So if I have this, from the drill, the opponent has to move, right? So once the opponent moves here, my body is wound and sprung. Doesn't matter which direction they move to, right? Once they move, I can hit. I'm going to use the yoga ball as an example, right? So as a target, assuming my opponent's mass is here in front of me, right? And they're going to move if I'm doing the drill, the drilling movement, right? If they don't get out of the way, they get hit with the thing. So pick a direction, right? So it's like from the studio audience, somebody pick which direction will the yoga ball move. Will it move away? Let's say after I do the drill to escape, the yoga ball actually moves in that direction. Well, it won't help, because when I unwind the baseball bat, I can move forward, right? And the same thing, if it moves to either side, right? If I do the drill and naturally it rolls, the opponent moves to that side, it doesn't matter. I can follow it with the second movement, right? The same thing. Let's say it tries to make a break for the door after I drill, right? So while I'm setting up the drill, the ball goes towards the door. It doesn't matter, because it's a 1-2. So sometimes they're working together. You set using one to set up the other one. Once you get the opponent on the run with the first one, the second one they can't avoid. So it's a checkmate. When you have the stick, you can force your opponent. You can get all the way around their defenses to the inside, forcing them to move. And once they've moved their feet, it doesn't matter which direction, it's over, right? So you get a second hit that's guaranteed to hit. Very, very good technique. So where were we? Drill, high hit. I connect those two. The next one, turning, right? We reviewed this. In the form, we're attacking the ankle, right? This is a tough place to take a hit, and it's also a difficult place to really create a lot of armor, because we need to make the foot flexible to run. So even suits of armor, if you're into something like motorcycling and they want to try to create a metal cage for the foot, it's difficult to shield the armor. But it doesn't have to go to the foot, right? We can make it turn, and the power coming out of this wind. So after the high hit, think about this pivot point being here in the center. I don't know if I can turn it fast enough, right? If I turn it like really, really fast, you can start to see sort of an hourglass shape, right? It's like two cones, and the two cones come out of this center point. So we're going to use, this is currently my left hand if I face away, and I hold my left hand out here, even with the smaller stick. If I have this and I hold it in the center, and then I have my other end here, and I'm just turning. This hand stays in place. Like if we're talking about rowing, I don't know what the name of it is. They have a special kind of pin, like a hinge pin, that has like a wrist pin and a loop at the top for rowing a specific kind of boat, right? So if you have this is the thing, and this one's turning. And then at one point, we're going to let the turn continue and complete. So you see, even with just the shorter stick, the smaller stick, if we put the angle and we let it free fly after hit, right? Without I don't have to make a lot of power. I'm winding that thing. This is, by the way, why it's good to practice. If you can go find a tree or a metal post, don't damage your stick. You don't have to apply a huge amount of power. But being able to see how much power it can make just by turning that cone, right? That's all this is doing, is taking this. I have my pivot, and then I'm going to wind up the other end, and then at some point, let it fly. And when it's flying, that's when it hits, is when it's powerful, when it hurts. Just like the analogy I always use is when you wake up and you're sleepwalking and you stub the toe on the furniture. It's the reason it hurts so bad is because the foot is in free fall. It's free floating. It's the same thing, not to have any sort of trigger, but car accident is when there's no brakes and the car just moving. This is very intense. So the same thing with the stick. Even from the beginning, we have this feeling that it's floating, that we're going to let it go, that we're going to hit the opponent with it, right? But we just control the end of it so that it flies. And then the same thing flies, fly, right? The whole thing, the whole time is always trying to reach the most relaxed state. We're just controlling it the minimum so that we don't lose control of it. Questions, thoughts, comments? Let's continue. So we talked about this one, the spinning, the spiral hit, right down this way, hit, and then tip up. The next one. This is the deflection for this, by the way, on the next one, after we have the baseball hit and we hit down, the next one is not actually pulling towards us. The hit, we want to deflect something either up or out and away from us. We don't want to bring the opponent's weapon to ourselves, and we don't want to hit ourselves from the weapon. But the same thing with the martial art. We want to strike through the target. We don't want to just hit the surface of the target. We want to press all the way well past it. So the same thing with this one. When we're tipping, if I have this, and then when I tip back, it's about here that the action is happening, right? Is I want to tip down here. I'm just going to bring it all the way up. And this is something that we can sort of hide behind. I'm gripping it with one hand. It should be wah-bah, should be perfect grip, right? But here, because I'm using the longer stick, I can have a little bit of tail at the end of the wah-bah. But for the shorter one, if I was using the hand-to-hand stick like this, I would make sure that I use as much of the stick as I can, and I can pull this way. And the same thing, it's in my center. So if I'm facing here, and my feet parallel, and my gait is parallel this way, is square, I turn, it's in line here, and then the same thing, this is in line this way. And it would actually, we want to step this way. And we're going to get a repeat of it, because in the next one, there's another posture that uses something very similar coming up. So this one is the tip up. If you just hold your stick, right, and if you put it, where's the correct place? Like in the corner here, we'll say the corner of the hip, like this, and it's just free floating. And then you take your other hand, and just the most natural, wherever it lands, you don't have to reach. And then from here, take these fingers and pull. You can use the wrist, fingertips, wrist, and elbow, and even shoulder, turning the body a little bit, right? This kind of pull. So this is the pivot. This is the hinge down here, the locked part, and this is the action. If you see, I can let go. I can pull that and let go, and it will come up. But here, I'm just maintaining so that it can't, I create a little buffer so that it can't hit me in the face, right? But I'm doing the pull back. And remember, the power down here. That's somebody's lower portion. The knee, right, is pull. The groin, right, is here. Very small movement. We can bring it all the way up. In the form, we practice the big movement. But here, really, we don't need that much power. You don't need to get that much. You're hitting right here, right in the center. So, high hit, spiral, tip up, That's what I'm referring to these in English. By the way, I can probably get the names for these in Mandarin if you care. This is a very short form, and once you get the flow of it, the names won't be important, and you'll just get the feeling of the wrist tricks. That stuff will come out later. So let's practice the form again all the way to the end of the first section. So from the salute, we're ready, block, cast, recoil, flip, smash, cut, block, drill, hit, spiral, tip up. What's the next one? Over. We talked about that a little bit. And then next is tricky. It's a hard one to learn in person. I don't know how we're going to do it on the camera, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. So we talked about this one. We talked about this movement here. Is practice like you have the stick and you're pulling it up and back and up again. Like imagine a taiji symbol, right? I don't know if I have a yin and yang here somewhere, right? But imagine up and down. So like the S shape. And then you're going to do this with this hand, up, down. And so that movement combined with this lever, up, down, creates this double up power, this double power. This is the wrist trick or hand trick that Master Guo spoke about, right? So tilting up. And then the next one is the same thing, right? Remember, I want to hit something high or I want to get over the top of something. So the same, if I hold my stick here and I push it forward, and then when I'm pushing it forward like this, I can also raise it. So if I'm doing this, but then this hand pushing to add power, the top of that bag is different, right? So this kind of feeling is almost like if you've seen like a basketball player doing this kind of thing, right? The feet are locked in place and they're shooting this way. So the same feeling, the chi is coming up in a very narrow line and we're extending it up and over top of the opponent's defense to hit them on the top of the head, right? Whatever they have up, it doesn't matter. We're going over top to hit. And by the way, this is where we can change if the opponent, let's say the opponent is here, and imagine that there's something between myself and them. They have a shield, right? They're holding up some kind of defense here in front of them. And I want to be able to get over top of that and hit this way. So the feeling is rising up and sending our chi up and over like over their defense system. That's the high hit or poking in over the top, right? Sometimes in English I call it the poke over the top. And then the next one is the turn. I want to also, before the end of this class, I want to work on something that's kind of unique. Just like the Taiji and the Kung Fu classes, I like to break out things that aren't part of the form but are also very, very valuable. So when you have this kind of stick, we're going to work on, if I'm just standing here like this, I'm minding my own business. This is a good thing if you when you want to go hiking, you want to go up to Runyon, there's people, you can stand very naturally and be ready to deal a massive amount of power just from your regular standing pose. So we'll deal with that in 1 second. Before we do twice, let's get to the point when we turn. We'll do, this is the end of the first section. Before we do, questions, thoughts, comments, ideas. Cool, let's continue. So from the beginning, by the way, you may see some of the videos where he puts his arms straight. It's for a show, right? In the meantime, try to keep the correct Taiji, everything round. Take good care of your body. So from the salute, ready, block, cast, recoil, flip, smash, drill, high hit, low hit, tip up, over the top, step, 2, 3, hit. Let's do that one more time. Ready, block, cast, flip, smash, cut, block, hit, baseball, ankle, tip up, over the top, 1, 2, 3. We'll get there. Okay, so the other thing, we have about 15 minutes left in class. This turning, you may have seen it, I may have demonstrated this before. So if you have studied the stick, you may have seen it. But if you're standing, or if we have using the smaller stick, either way, is this turning. This is another sort of hand trick. Is from here. Is all I have to do is if I pull the stick across and turn my wrist this way. And what this means is my opponent is here. I can stand like this and face my opponent, and just by turning my center, my body, my torso, right, I can hit. I just missed. So turning, right, this kind of hit. Very powerful. And it's not, I'm unassuming. I'm just standing here like this, right, this hit. So, especially if you can set some pillows up on your couch and practice making a little bit of power, even the smaller stick, right? You can be holding, it's down this way. It doesn't look like anything's happening, and then it's there. So this turn, so this kind of, same thing, well, we won't deal with the sword. But the idea is, especially with walking stick, because when you encounter somebody on the trail, right, this looks very natural. It doesn't look like I'm about to do anything. But if I can, and by the way, also running away, if I'm here, if my opponent wants to approach me, I can turn while I'm running. Right, so this power when I'm here for turning. So just holding this, this is a single wrist trick, is where if I take my thumb and I lead it up and over to hit this way, right, we can go back and forth and back and forth. This is what this movement is, right? So you can practice if you like to get familiar with the rotational feeling with the stick, is hitting over and down. And when you do that, get it to the center, just like in Tai Chi. Instead of hitting out here and being inaccurate, I want to hit right to the center. So I want to bring that arc to the center that way with maximum power, right? If the opponent is long ways this way, you may go horizontal, but vertical using gravity, right? And we don't have to use a lot of power, right? So practice the feeling of turning this, right, this way. And then, did we review this one? Is where you put it up, catch, slide, hit, turn, catch, slide, hit, turn, catch, slide, hit, turn. By the way, Mark was on here the other day. He actually has a pair of nunchucks. Nunchucks, that's a Japanese weapon. They may exist in Chinese culture. I've never met anyone studying Kung Fu that has, Paul Terry may have a set of nunchucks. I think it's a Japanese, nunchaku, it's Japanese, but this is the same principle, so you can practice your nunchucks while you do this. And the same thing, I want you to feel this movement. After you grip and you start to slide, combine that with the hit. So it should feel like, I don't know if you can hear it, but it should feel like the perfect golf swing, and it should go right to the center. So when it's here, the stick doesn't lie, right? So it should go right to the center. It should feel like it's flying. Questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? You're muted. Hang on, let me see. Try that.
Can you do the turn again in the end?
Oh, okay, yeah, we can work on that. Like I said, I was gonna wait until we get a class with Mark. So after we have this high hit over the top, I'm gonna teach it in a couple of different ways with the footwork, because remember, the footwork changes. But for now, with this high hit, I'm gonna turn my attention 180 degrees. So if I'm going to use this line, if I'm hitting in this direction, I'm going to look back in that direction. So after I do the high hit, I'm stepping forward. I'm turning, and I'm using this hand just like a lever to do this. So just again, like rowing, if I'm standing here, if I have my stick, it's in my center. If I step my right foot forward and pull my left hand back, right? And then I level my feet, and then do the same thing. This one is almost just like rowing a boat. The lever is at my hip or my center, and this is turning. And so the feeling is that I'm bypassing the danger. My opponent is here. I've tipped over the top. And let's say they've advanced. Now they're much closer to me, right? I'm going to step past them while my stick goes backwards, right? So if my opponent is standing here in the center, I'm going to step past and turn this like a wiper blade in front of them while I step past them, right? Works with the smaller stick as well. So this one, if my opponent is here, right? As I walk past them, I'm hitting them, right? Maybe if I travel in this way, you can see better. I have the high hit, and as they move towards me, right? It's like, imagine your opponent is there, and you're going to sneak past them, and as you sneak past them, you're going to throw this windshield wiper blade of a hit into the mix, right? So from the hit this way, ankle, tip up, and then when I'm hitting over the top here, my feet are parallel, I'm just here, and then I'm pushing my right foot and pulling my left hand, and then stepping again with my left foot. So it's like this. Think of it, if I have a weight, right, that I can use my feet. So as I step, I'm going to start to pull on this lever. And then when I take the other step, right, you can actually get, this is a heavy bag, right? So you can step. So just have your stick, like here, from your belly button, sticking forward. And if I walk in that direction, I'm going to just, the same thing, where it's natural, the most natural place to drape the fingers over top, step forward. And then when my left foot steps forward, again, it's going to take a full step, and I'm going to turn this stick 180 degrees to the other side. You feel it? Right? So this is, the idea is this turn. And that's the first half of it, because we're going to turn 180. If you just watch once or twice, the idea is after I do the high hit, I'm going to turn this way, catch, and now I'm facing the exact direction I came from. So this form travels north, and then once I reach the north, it turns and it travels directly south. So it travels in two directions, north-south, right? So the first part, and this is again, the footwork is completely variable. If I don't change all of that, if I don't change any of it, and I just go forward all the time, or forwards and backwards, I can block, hit, cast, smash, up, back, drill, high hit, low hit. I'm staying all in one line, right, until I get to here, and I turn 180, right? And the same thing, I can still face in one direction. But you can make it zigzag. You see, because I run out of space, I start turning, right? After the drill, I'll do a high hit over here, and turn back this way, and step, turn, here, hit, flip. The direction doesn't matter. The hand tricks are what's making the power. So later we can combine all that stuff. Let's continue. We still have 10 minutes. So, So after the high hit, step right and look, step left and turn. And now from here, because I'm turning 180, I'm going to hook step. So this foot comes to a T. I don't know if you can see it. And then I'm going to turn and pivot on my feet this way. So let's just watch. I'll do it 3 times and face 3 different directions so you can get a feeling. So high hit, turn, step, pivot, hit. Now if I face that direction, high hit, sweep, step, turn, hit. Now if I face in that direction, there's a high hit, step, step, turn, pivot. Let's do this first. Yeah, question?
What would you think about if you don't high hit, and then you just step with the right and pivoted, you just do it in one step, right?
I don't want you to miss the trick, right? Each movement has a very specific hand trick. So with this one, if you imagine a center line here, it comes down, it goes to the center of my place. I have some tape on the floor, and sometimes when I bump my monitor, my camera, it changes it. So if it looks like I'm off center, that may be why I need to readjust sometime. But imagine that line. I'm staying on the center line. So this movement is if I have a wall here, right? Let me see if I have another place. Maybe if I can use this thing, right? This is here, is when I'm stepping, I'm keeping that along the surface of a plane, right? So this is turning on a planar surface because we're going to use that same axis to hit the ankle, right? So if I use this direction, hit here. Let me face the other way, and you'll see when I turn, the same thing. I'm going to try to use the center line. So if I'm facing the other way, after my high hit, when I turn, step here, the same direction that I have spun the wiper blade this way, I'm going to use as the angle for which to hit. Does that make sense?
You don't think it can be just condensed into that one step and wind up at the end in the same position, having done all the same hand tricks?
Okay, so, wait, you're saying this, after you do this high hit, just step left and turn?
No, step right and then pivot on your heel, just one right step.
There's no wrong way to do it.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? But we want to maintain both Tai Chi principles and also Tai Chi theory, because it may be a situation, if I hit forward like this, my next logical step may be my left foot, and then when I turn here, I'm already halfway through. But if I turn the step this way and this foot's behind, I may step 1, 2. It depends on where you envision your opponent, right? And or in real life, if we're using this to defend ourselves, where the opponent actually is. So if you're trying to make some ground on the opponent, they have their guard up, and you want to 1, 2, and just clear their weapons to free for the other side, right? I just want to knock their weapons out of the way so I can turn this way. I may take 2 steps. But if it's a situation where I'm just getting here, I just took 1 step and did the thing, right? Just step in and hit. So, again, situationally dependent in the martial art. In the form, it's what you envision. So, after my high hit, I can just take 1 step, turn, and hit. Or, sorry, Tika, if this is confusing, I can high hit, left, right, right, left, then turn to hit. And you'll see, you can ask Master Yun, tell him you're studying BIAN. He's really likes this one. And so, have him, ask him about it, because the name for it is, I'll remind you again, just like here on the stick we have a picture of the Big Dipper. And just like, it's difficult to do in a mirror, but just like in Western culture, the Big Dipper is recognized in Chinese culture, and they call it the 7 stars. We might refer to the 7 stars as Pleiades, but this is 7 stars. And the reason I carved that on my stick is a reminder that the footwork for this form is referred to as 7-star stepping. So imagine that you're playing hopscotch and you're using the 7 stars. It means it can go anywhere, right? Transforms to any direction and can move, right? It's like zigzag is the way to describe the zigzag stepping. Master Yun canonized it, like said we're going to do a diagonal this way, then straight, then diagonal. But you can practice anything you want. And sometimes some of the movements working better if you're turning, right? But then we can also just do it in a straight line. It's a retreat or it's a turn. Eventually the hand trick, you should be able to put it on top of anything, maybe Bagua footwork, Bagua stepping, something like that. What's the other one we learned today? This one, right? Over the top. So here. If you're just standing, you're holding your stick, you can turn it this way. Or if you have it on your side, here is turning this way to the center. So, and again, if you have a tree, if you have something, you may even be able to use an office chair if you have it set up correctly. You can practice. Maybe don't hit the metal part, but something like that. Questions, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, so when you do the T-step, so at the same time that you do the T-step, you switch hands on the stick, right?
I'm sorry, say this again?
When you do the T-step at the end,
oh yeah.
Do you at the same time you switch hands on the stick, yes?
Yeah, so this is what I said, we can go on, we're going to cover this one. It'll probably take more than 1 class because of this rotating one. And there's variables to it. So, yeah, after I pull this, I actually waba and switch hands this way, and then this other hand comes in underneath. This is a different kind of hit. Usually, if we're like a baseball batter, or we want to club something, right, like a stick, we use the one hand on top of the other. In this case, like for baseball, we would hit this way. In this case, it feels backwards, but it adds an extra power, right? And so we'll cover more of it later. After we tip here, this turns, and then I waba, and then this other hand comes in to create this lever action. Just the same way we have this one creating this lever here, and the same way that we have this one creating this lever here, right? By doing this. The same thing. After we've done the windshield wiper, here we waba, and then this turning part of the body creates a double pivot to create the wrist trick for the ankle sweep, right? And this is also a hit to the ankles. What's that?
Yeah, you hit down.
It's towards the ankle, yeah, lower leg, somewhere between the knee and the foot. And it looks something hit here, turn, and then this is down here because the next one going to pop back up. And we use the same, it's like the third movement from the first section appears as the second or third movement from the second section. Anyway, so let's actually put the stick down for just a second. And let's do a little bit of breathing. If you allow your hands to sort of rest naturally, and you can extend your head top, relax your shoulders, and feel the point. Imagine, if you have pants or jeans and they have a seam that goes right down the outside of the leg, put your middle finger right at the point where it connects on that outside seam naturally. And then we're going to do some breathing. But I want you to push in and see if you can find there's a tendon that runs right along the side, right on the upside. And like you're pressing in a circle, right on the outside of that tendon. You may poke around a little bit, feel a few spots, and feel where it feels tender. Keep the good posture, head top is up, relax your shoulders, breathe deep. And keep using that middle finger to find and or massage that point. The point we're looking for is on the Gallbladder Meridian, which at that point of the leg runs on the outseam. So if you feel an area that feels tender on either side, you may feel more sore on one side than the other. The breathing is natural. Change direction with your circles. And by the way, if your fingers get tired, use the whole arm. So like you're doing a shoulder roll, and the pivot point is going through the fingertip. You can use gravity to assist to relax the arms, to create more weight, to push into that point. Change directions again if you haven't. Breathing deep. Extend the head top. The arms and shoulders and wrists and finger doing what they're doing. The head top still going up. Relax your tailbone. Grip the ground. So stretching while you're turning these two small circles, the shoulders and the fingers working. Change directions one more time. And then bring your feet together in the center. Just let your hands rest at the sides. The finger may fall, the center line of the hand, the middle finger may fall into the same place that we had just been working on. And then internally adjust your posture. Push your head top up, relax your shoulders, tuck your chin. Tongue is in the correct place. Relax your whole face, eyes, nose, mouth. Half smile is the minimum. Relax your chest and back. Let your arms go. Relax your tailbone, grip the ground. Breathing deep. Imagine there's just one you, one body. There's no individual parts. And so looking inside, imagine the energy filling the whole entirety of you from your head to your feet. As you breathe, imagine you can inflate your whole structure. The ribs, your forearms, the tips of your shoulders, down to the outsides of the corners of your feet, the top of your crown, expanding with your breathing. And then in yoga, they have something, it's arguable based on the language, but sometimes called ujjayi breathing. This is sometimes translated as a victory breath. So imagine on the inside, may turn into a segmented kind of breathing. It should. When you inhale all the way and at the top, starts to top out. So breathing deep, imagine the kind of breath that you have after you win. You can take a deep breath, right? This type of complete, like a completion. Ujjayi breathing. Do one more. for Kung Fu, we use a fist, and this represents we have the power. And then we use a flat hand, and this is a piece covering the power. Call or email me if you need anything.
Thanks, Brian.
Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. That was great. Night.
See ya.